Good morning, everybody. Another cute session. Microsoft Teams using Teams. Let me try that again. This is another cute session. Champions using Teams effectively, and even trying to speak effectively. So you got me and Nash here this morning. I think Stacy will be joining us soon. And as always, we're just here it's office hours. Ask me anything. We're here to chat it up, talk about Teams. Glad you're here. And I see the chat has already started, and a question about OneNote, which is one of my favorite topics, so I'm all for that. But for everyone, again, if you've got questions, you can feel free to start putting them in the chat or come off mute, use a raise hand, whatever you want to do there. To the question of inserting a PDF in OneNote and turning it sideways. So if you're talking about insert PDF as what OneNote calls a printout, I think the answer is going to be different if you're in the Windows 10 version of OneNote versus the desktop version. I don't think the Windows 10 version has rotating of images. I feel like the desktop does, and if I'm mistaken, it may be because I've in the past added some add-ins that are only available for the desktop that do rotation. So that's about the only way you're going to get the ability to rotate an image in OneNote is rotation. I'm kind of checking now to see if I can duplicate that. So yeah.
Georgiana, are you like the way you write this up is that you're trying to insert a PDF in OneNote? Do you already have a PDF file and you're just trying to go and put that PDF file on a OneNote or on a page? You talk about what you're trying to do where it ends up not displaying the way you want?
Yeah, that's correct. If I insert it, I think as a printout, it turns it sideways.
Yeah, so the other thing about that, I've done this before too, where you kind of got to do the like if you're looking at your PDF and you want to print to OneNote, and just like you would with a physical printer, you have to kind of tell it whether it's portrait or landscape. So if in the cases of what you're describing, it didn't make the right choice for you, or the choice that you wanted, maybe going back to the print settings, because from that perspective, the PDF reader is treating OneNote like a printer and basically telling it to do portrait versus landscape or vice versa. If there's a combination of portraits and landscapes in that, then that'll be a little challenging. But what I was trying to see, yeah, so I do see, so once those images are in OneNote, in the desktop version, I think you do have a rotate, right click the image and do rotate, and then you should be able to rotate them from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other top of mind things from folks these days? Meetings, live events, breakout rooms. What's the other? Anything from Ignite that you were wondering about that was announced? Teams rooms. Just calling out all the popular fancy stuff. See, we got some chat kind of coming up here.
So one thing that I'm looking out for, good morning everyone, is the dual organizer role for Teams Live or even for regular Teams meetings.
It's only coming for regular Teams meetings. And there's a roadmap item that covers both commercial and GCC with a target release starting in November. GCC is not going to be in November. We'll probably see it in December at the earliest, and I can copy and paste the link to the public roadmap item in chat. What you'll see come before the ability to delegate additional co-organizers will be the ability for an organizer to appoint presenters to be able to manage breakout rooms, which is probably the #1 reason people are asking for the co-organizer role. So we'll at least alleviate that pain a little bit sooner. That one's on the way out the door right now. It's I forget exactly what was said yesterday. I thought that was what our engineering folks were saying, had a fix that was already being pushed to production, and it should be, a matter of days before we see the ability for a meeting organizer to appoint presenters to manage breakout rooms for them. And I'll,
Yes.
yep,
So,
go ahead.
so to Glenn's point there in the chat, still not seeing the breakout room functions in your tenant. Sounds like that's not surprising. There's some challenges there to kind of get that completely rolled out. Yeah. So it sounds like we're close, but not there yet.
M365 public roadmap. Yeah, I had somebody talking about a conference they're planning for February, and it's like, yeah, if breakout rooms is the thing you're worried about, that's very high confidence we're going to have that before February for them. The co-organizer thing, because it hasn't started rolling out yet, and things could still go wrong. Just like with the presenter thing, it was supposed to be out a couple of weeks ago, and they ran into some code quality issues that they had to fix before they finished rolling it out.
And
so,
Christiana, I know you're a big live event user. I was curious, as these additional features are being added to the regular Teams meeting with the 1,000 person cap and whatnot, do you have plans to? I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm just curious. Do you have plans to maybe move some of your things to Teams meetings with these new features, and move away from live events, or are you still? Is live events still the right fit for you?
So we're doing a combination of both. So live events we use when we have public events, where by law there are certain. Okay, so I'm in GCC. I work for New York City Department of Finance, and by law there are certain hearings that need to be held in public view, but we do not want public interference, so to speak. And so the one-way stream of Teams Live works for those types of events. I did during Ignite follow up on having the sort of native multiple camera option for more than one panelist, that like multiple presenter view, and I was told that is not coming for live. I can still be hopeful that their minds
I remember that
change.
question. I think I was the one who replied to your question.
All right. We really do need that. So for like our banking commission, there'll be 3 people on a panel, and all 3 panelists have to be visible by the viewing public. So we've been doing meeting, or we've just been sharing one of the presenters' screens so that all 3 people can be seen at the same time. And there are some other things that we have to play around with, such as timing, because if there's a 3-person view, then we need the main host, their tile rather, to be larger than the other 2. Right. So we've gotten that down to a science, if you will.
With hacks, you mean?
Not with well, you can call it hacks, but it's more so timing, right? What we've done is that we keep the main hosts, their camera on the entire time, and then we have the secondary, if you will, the secondary panelists keep their cameras off until it's time for them to join. Okay. So that way their tiles are the same size between those 2, and the main host tile is the largest. And so the focus is on that person for Teams Live. But we held a close to like a 500-person agency town hall meeting yesterday on regular Teams meetings, and we just used the meeting options functions to make everyone else attendees, keep limited presenters, regulate mics and cameras, so forth and so on.
Because that's what I was going to ask you, is if those functions gave you that confidence like live events would, that there's no participation because you've disabled all of their abilities.
Yeah, and you're going to see us keep adding more features like that to Teams meetings so that you can have everything from the fully interactive, it's just a bunch of peers coming to meet, to a highly produced, you're just watching a stream. The things you'll see come soonest that might make this simpler for you is the ability to just take a regular Teams meeting and use RTMP to send that meeting stream out to a service like YouTube. And then that's where the citizens go look rather than even being in the meeting and having to worry about the meeting options. You're going to see more ability to have control over whose cameras show up on screen. So while we've got some recent changes like the ability to spotlight more than one person and all that kind of stuff, the ability to go and do, they're calling it managed mode right now. They're still kind of figuring out exactly what it'll be called and how it'll all work. But essentially, the meeting organizers and hosts would be able to decide what cameras are up. So if I've got a board of 9 people with their cameras all on, but I only want the spotlighted cameras to be up, you'd switch it to managed mode, and the only cameras that'll show up are the ones that you've told to come up. To give the ability to do more of that production value that some folks are using live events for, because they want everyone in the live events, they can switch cameras like they're in a TV control room. We're going to keep seeing more and more of those features come over from live events into a meeting, a regular Teams meeting as the direction. We might see a couple of other tweaks come to live events, but the long-term strategy is not to invest in that at all.
Right, but then we'll need the attendee number to go up for Teams meetings because live event allows. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Sorry, yep, go for it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You need the capacity to go up?
Right, we need the capacity, the attendee capacity, because right now live events allows for 10,000, right?
Actually, it's 20,000 today.
Okay, wonderful. But that's the reason why we've been using it, because we would have more than 1,000 people join an event, and we don't want them on the phone. We don't want the rollover on the telephone, because we need them to actually see. We need the public to see the presentation. They can't see it on the phone. They can only hear it. Right. Yep. So we'd need the attendee capacity to go up on meetings.
So the interactive meeting capacity isn't going to go up beyond 1,000, but what's already rolled out is the overflow to the view only experience. Now this one isn't where it probably needs to be in the long run, but the first 1,000 people end up joining the interactive meeting. The 1,001st through 21,000 person gets the view only experience if it's enabled in your tenant, if you've turned it on. The view only experience is the attendee view of a live event, right? And yet it's got some limitations today. If I threw the link to the documentation in chat. But we've already, knowing that one of the reasons people are doing live events is scale, that's what the view only experience was built for. This rolled out, I don't know, early in the spring. But yeah, it will just seamlessly transition to sending people to the view only stream experience when you've run out of capacity in the interactive meeting. I did say there are limitations. Like right now, this wouldn't be a full replacement for you because they don't support gallery mode, right? Which means it's like the web experience used to be in a Teams meeting. You just see the active speaker. They do plan to improve this, but it's there right now today as a good minimum viable product first step to letting people make that switch over, right? Gallery doesn't exist in a live event, therefore they're okay with that right now. Or at least they were okay with that when they first released it. They are working to bring more of this, the regular view experience into a Teams meeting. And additionally, that RTMP out, if you really want it to be the meeting experience, that was actually supposed to be shipped already. It hasn't shipped yet, but it's still, right now they're just doing bug fixing on it, so it should be out in the next. They keep saying this quarter, so that means before the end of the year. And that will give you just a regular meeting experience streamed out to a place like YouTube or Facebook Live or wherever you normally have your citizens interact with the agency.
Go ahead. I see you have your hand up. I'm seeing that right. You're still on mute if you're trying to speak.
Sorry, this is not a whiteboard question, but I'm just using whiteboard as an example. It's really a GCC broader question. We had no whiteboard, then we got whiteboard basic functions, which most of us got. Then we got the enhanced whiteboard functions, which I got. Then I got a couple of emails from some of our users. Hey, we didn't even receive the basic whiteboard functions yet. What's up with that? And under the old way on the on-prem, if your neighbor had something that was functioning and you didn't, when we were sitting together at work, you knew that something was wrong and you called the IT service desk, and they're extremely busy, and now they're getting additional Teams calls. And so it's further complicated by the fact that now we're not sitting next to each other on the department network at work. We're working remotely from home, so we're dependent on our individual internet service providers. And so we had a meeting, and the question came up with, what are some good ways to manage user expectations and communicate to them that, we're not going to get all the functions on the exact date that the roadmap says. We're not all going to get the exact same functions on the exact same date and time. So we're just trying to cook up some communications to, so we've said some things like, be sure and restart your computer in case the Teams function isn't loading except on restart, and be patient and blah, blah, blah. But if you have any other suggestions of how we could manage expectations of this new way of interacting with the cloud instead of the on-prem with written in stone dates.
One thing I'd say, I tend to say in this kind of conversation, is that we kind of are in this new space, right? Where we do have updates that come, quote unquote, all the time, and to some degree, kind of got to get used to that. The other side of what I'd say too, though, is especially when it's a critical piece. So let's say, and I know this isn't about whiteboard, but let's say whiteboard was a business critical thing where if it's going to change, I need to manage that. Knowing, monitoring message center posts, planning for it, and even opting for to not get the next release, or things like that, might be ways to help on those critical pieces, right? I don't know if anybody's business, has a critical dependency on something like whiteboard, but I'm sure there are certain rollouts that, hey, if this thing changes in the middle of my, so-and-so activity, there's going to be a problem. So to me, managing the message center, just being very deliberate and conscious about that, and trying to plan for it, and trying to even delay anything that you think might have a high impact. To me, those are the two kind of things I think about: managing it, but also accepting that it is an ongoing kind of a rollout thing. That's what I've seen among my customers. I don't know, Nash or Stacy, if you got any thoughts there.
The cognitive dissonance of it used to work one way and now it works differently is normal, right? This is part of the change to an evergreen service. We used to release a new version of Office every 3 years. And oftentimes your organization would take a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 9 to deploy that. The industry significantly changed. Quite frankly, Microsoft got its pants beaten off by our competition that could adapt much more quickly. And a long time ago, we switched to the software as a service model, right? Where instead of waiting 3 years for new features to be released by Microsoft and months to years for our customers to upgrade the things on their end to do it, there's something like 150 changes to Office 365 every week. It fundamentally doesn't work the way it used to, and that when people are expecting it to work the way it used to is going to cause a lot of discomfort. The roadmap piece, We try to make sure we lead with the idea that our priority is quality, to make sure we are not breaking the experience for people. We still screw up that balance on occasion, but that's really what we're shooting for. When you see dates change, that's because something got discovered that would make it not be a high quality experience or might impact people's ability to get their job done. Because of that, we're going to keep trying to do our best to communicate what the intent is. Like, hey, we plan to release this in December. We're going to do everything we can to get it out the door, but if it's not ready in December, we're not just going to arbitrarily ship it. So there is that as a benefit, right? When people are seeing the downside of, hey, that thing I wanted isn't here. Yep, it's because it would be broken if we gave it to you today. We don't want to do that in general. So I try to focus on tempering those expectations of, yeah, it's going to work a lot more like my phone, where those updates come when they come. Those UI changes, maybe some of the big stuff we get control over, but a lot of the little micro things, they're just going to get here when they get here. And yeah, like Stacey just threw the fact, there's been 124 message center post feature releases this year, which are big ones. Minor ones, there's probably been 5 or 10x that, where they weren't big enough changes to even warrant a message center post. There is a ton of change here. It is an evergreen service. The benefit is you get better stuff faster, right? You get things that help you do your job and your work faster. And that has to end up getting balanced out with the fact that, yep, Ricardo might have gotten it the day before I did, and there might be a little frustration for why don't I have it yet. But when we have things rolling out, they're being rolled out to a global hyperscale service with a lot of users, and we just don't big bang flip things on for everybody all at the same time, because that's how you end up. Right, when little problems happen, they turn into big problems when you treat it that way.
The other small part to what I heard, though, is maybe, what are some tips we can tell the users if I'm sitting next to someone and they've got it and I don't. The classic one that, back in the day, it was always reboot your computer. It's not quite that simple anymore, but it is sort of, in the sense of, I've always given the tip of check for updates in Teams, sign out, sign back in, right? Many times that small couple steps is what, is the difference between, you having whatever got rolled out recently and not having it. So, that could be, something that could help. Just like you would used to tell our users, just reboot. That would be the first thing I'd say is check for updates, sign inside out, and then let's talk, let's see if you've got the feature at that point or not. So something else to keep in mind. I was just checking the chat there. Again, Georgina, to your OneNote questions, I was responding in chat there that the rotate is for images, so you should see that in desktop, but won't see that for a PDF printout. So screenshot the PDF and insert it as an image, and then you get rotation. That's kind of the hack I've used in the past.
Yeah, if the PDF as a file shows up incorrectly, that's probably because that is the orientation set in the PDF file. We don't rotate it, where your viewer might automatically do that for you. If you have Adobe Acrobat, you can actually go in and set the orientation properly. If you don't, there are third-party solutions that will do that for you, which I will not name or recommend, but you're welcome to Google for them, which will also let you just rotate a PDF file if you don't own the tools for editing PDFs.
You also asked which one is better, OneNote for Windows 10 versus OneNote for desktop. I won't give an actual which is better. I'll say longtime OneNote fanatic. I'm OneNote Windows 10, but keep OneNote Desktop installed. There's still a small amount of things that OneNote Desktop does, like this rotate as one example, where every now and then I need to go back to it. Waiting for a day. I mean, we have talked about kind of a merge where the best of both worlds come together. That's a world I'm waiting on. That's a world people are working on. But until that day, I have at least mostly like 90%, do all of my OneNote stuff in the Windows app. I think that's a lot more modern innovations are there, but I keep the OneNote desktop close at hand because there's still a few features still there. Let's see here, and the moderating chat feature of Teams Live coming to Teams Meeting. I think that's oh, you guys are talking about it, yeah. So yeah, as a yes. Maybe Nash, you can talk to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time. So there's a private preview right now for this in commercial, but it is built on top of the Yammer live event functionality. Because there is no such thing as Yammer that's part of GCC, just available to GCC users as a non-compliant service. The plumbing to make all of that work is complicated. They're telling us do not expect it early next year, which I think is when the Q&A feature is supposed to roll out to commercial, but like Christmas of next year at the earliest. So that's a long way out. Anytime you have engineering, say a year from now, it could accelerate by 6 months. It could drop by 6 months, right? That's a very long way out in their development crystal ball to forecast a date. There are people working on third-party apps to do this as well. So I would not at all be surprised if we see folks like Poly trying to go in and fill that gap. Anybody and any of the other polling solutions out there trying to go and have a way to let people submit questions in private that then can be moderated and shown back in an app. Which that's the whole benefit of a big partner ecosystem. They can pick up the slack when we drop the ball, to mix metaphors. Yeah, moderated Q&A, that is one that if that's a hard I have to have, we're not going to see that natively in a Teams meeting for a long time. Some of my customers, that's one of the reasons that they like doing YouTube, is that you can do the moderated chat on YouTube. And yeah, I'm going to tell you that that's one of the maybe dozen groups I work with doing open meetings, turns on and moderates the YouTube live chat, because that's a lot of work. And if you forget to turn off the unmoderated chat, then it's a lot of risk. So yeah, something to make sure you account for in your planning. And if you plan to do it one way, make sure it's part of your checklist so you don't forget to configure things the way you wanted.
Yeah, I do have at least one customer that's the only thing keeping them in live events is moderated chat. And of course, their one option is to come over to live events where they would love to use all of that full fidelity, but then let's turn off the chat. We just can't risk it. So you get all the best of the Teams meeting, but just turn that chat off and just eliminate that risk.
Yeah, the majority of my customers that used to use live events did switch over, and like City of Minneapolis, they were like, great, we'll just give people a form. Like they publish a link to a form. Here's where you go and ask your questions, and then they go and decide which ones they're going to go and put up on the screen. Like that's a pretty easy, pretty lo-fi solution to that problem, and it works for them really well. Another tip that they shared with me is while they do let people call into the meetings if they register for them, again, they publish another form for that. They actually have a voicemail line that they say, hey, if you leave a voicemail, you can leave up to a 2-minute voicemail up until like 4 o'clock on the day of a meeting, if you want to go and testify before or speak before the board, and they will play that voicemail into the meeting that night. So like I thought that was another brilliant, low tech, pretty easy to accomplish without buying anything or doing anything extra. They just have one of their office administrative staff comb through the messages, preview them, and then have them queued up ready for the docket that night. Great. There are a lot of ways if your business areas are focused on citizen engagement to engage citizens, both live and interactively when that makes sense, as well in ways that are a lot more controlled to prevent risk of meeting hijack, but also because there are a lot of people who won't get up to the microphone to speak live, right? If you're looking for being inclusive with lots of different voices, yeah, you should allow people to provide testimony in writing. I'm an introvert. Terrifies me to have to go and testify in front of the legislature. And I'll fake being okay with it, but man, I would love to just send stuff in writing instead. Or record a voicemail where I can delete it and start over again. Wow, where'd the time go?
Yeah, right. It's good stuff. Well, glad y'all could make it, and great questions. And we'll do it again next week. So yeah, then we'll put this on the YouTube playlist, and we'll see you guys next week. All right. So have a good weekend.
Take care, everybody.